So, the other day on one of my videos, I got some comments, as you can see, that basically state that God's omnipotence negates free will. If God knows everything we're going to do, then free will isn't real. So what we're going to do today, instead of responding to another video, we're going to respond to these comments and find out, does God's omnipotence really get rid of the concept of free will? All right, so let's start in the beginning. Why would God put the tree of the knowledge of good and evil in the garden if he knew that Adam and Eve were going to disobey him and sin and allowing sin to enter into the world? Why didn't he just not put the tree of the knowledge of good and evil in the Garden of Eden in the first place? And that answer is pretty simple, so that Adam and Eve had a choice to make. You see, if God didn't put that tree in the garden, then Adam and Eve never really had a choice to choose to obey God or not. If that had happened, there is no free will. Oh, God can say we had free will, but with no option to disobey him and no option to choose our own path, there is no free will. For example, if I have a friend stay over and I tell him, hey, for breakfast, you can have any type of cereal that I have in the cupboard over there. Take your pick. And so they get up the next morning excited, ready to see what cereal they can pick. And they open the drawer to the cupboard and all they see is one type of cereal. I made it seem like they had options and I made it seem like they could pick. But in reality, they had no choice. They had to eat that one particular cereal because I said there were options and there weren't. It's the same with God. If God said, hey, you have a free will choice to choose to obey me or not, but I'm not going to give you an avenue or a way to disobey me, then there is no free will because they cannot choose whether to obey or disobey him. Here's the thing. If God knew that Adam and Eve were going to sin and decided, well, I don't want them to sin, so I'm going to get rid of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, that would actually be using his omnipotence to destroy free will, to take away free will, to say, I see the option you're going to choose, so I'm going to rip it away from you so that you can't make that option. So saying that God took away free will by putting that tree of the knowledge of good and evil there, knowing they'd sin, actually the opposite is true. If God knew Adam and Eve were going to sin and took away that option, then that would have been using his omnipotence to get rid of free will, not the other way around, not putting the tree there, letting Adam and Eve make their choice. Yes, he knew what their choice was going to be, but he did not influence their choice. If he had taken away the tree of the knowledge of good and evil because he knew it was going to happen, that would be taking away their free will. That would be taking away their choice. That is where his omnipotence would have interfered on free will, not leaving the tree there and letting Adam and Eve make their choice. So, does God's omnipotence interfere with free will? And the answer is no. God does know everything that we're going to do before we do it. Every choice we make, every thought we have, every word we say, every chance we have to sin, that we choose him or sin. He knows what we're going to pick. However, omnipotence doesn't interfere with free will at all. Yes, God knows what we're going to do, but he doesn't interfere with the choices that we're going to make. So if I have the option to choose sin or choose God, and God knows what I'm going to do, so he decides to take away the option of sin, then that is when he interferes with my free will. Does God want me to choose sin? No, obviously he doesn't. But if he takes away that option of sin and leaves only the option for him, that takes away my free will to choose him. That actually interferes with free will. So many people are like, well, if God knows that everything we're going to do, that takes away free will. And that's not true. God giving you the option of sin or him is free will. If he takes away sin, takes away that option, then there is no free will because you can't choose anything else but him. I think the best description of God's ability, God giving you free will, is in Revelation chapter 3, verse 20, where Jesus said, behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in and dine with him. That's God saying, I'm knocking at your door, but you have the option. You can choose whether to open the door and welcome Jesus in or just ignore him and keep the door shut. That is your choice. If God decided, you know what, I'm just going to kick the door in if you don't answer it, that's not free will. That's him forcing his decision upon you. So saying that God is giving us options, and since he gives us options and knows we're going to choose sin, yet giving us those options anyway, is an obstruction of free will, the opposite is actually true. If God knew we were going to sin and took away the sin options and said, this is all you have is me, you can't choose anything else, that would be him negating free will. So by allowing us to have choices, even though they're wrong choices, we have the ability to choose. God doesn't interfere with our free will choice. If he did, then that would be the interference of free will. If he said, I am going to give you no other option but me, you can't choose whether you want him or not. And that takes away free will.